Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Library Building Committee meeting. We have a quorum and we can start the meeting at 6:05. So we'll call to order. Our chair, Mark Weissman, is away. I will be your host this evening, and hopefully we'll get through everything. I was beginning to think it was me when it's like, oh no, we don't have a quorum. It's like, we might have to cancel again. But no, thank you all for being present. All right, so first thing on the agenda is the old business approval of minutes for 2/14. Nancy, I know you sent out an updated version of that, right?
Yes, the changes were just, I had the word "the" instead of "there," and I just clarified the stockpiled soils.
Dirt, the stuff.
Right.
Okay, so
Move acceptance of the minutes at 2:14.
thank you, Bob. Yes. Lois seconds. Any discussion? Other further corrections? Okay, I don't see anybody there on the screen. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unless anybody over there on the screen, which I can't really see.
I don't see anybody.
Okay, motion passes.
But what committee members are on the screen?
Jesse,
Just Jesse.
and then the ad hoc members, Ava's here and Elizabeth is here for ad hoc.
Okay. Thank you.
So we have five voting members.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, all right, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda is under new business. Start with the project updates. Anthony, I'll turn it over to you for Downs.
Let me share my screen. It's like I'm pulling up the PDF now. Screen, can everybody hear me? I hope.
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you. We just don't see anything yet.
All right, how about now? Should be good to go.
Yes.
Yes. Looks like the Downs Building Committee agenda.
All right,
Yeah.
perfect. All right. First things first, just want to give a quick project update here with a couple of these sections. First things first, just some administration items, some contract and permit update. Contracts pretty much have been issued at that point in time. That's why you saw that. That has been removed from the agenda. We currently have our plumbing permit in hand. We're just waiting on our mechanical permit and our fire protection permit. The shop drawings for fire protection have been submitted to the town for their review. It's at the fire marshal, as well as mechanical documents as well. So those two are imminent from the town. Once we get those, that will complete the permitting process. We should have everything on file, and moving forward with project schedule, we'll be able to call for inspections and get everything cleared up. 1B is the construction schedule update. Just want to give a quick update on our MEP coordination process. KLS, like last time we spoke, provided drawings for level 1 and 2 for review by our MEP subcontractors. We are waiting on our HVAC subcontractor on their final completion review of levels 1 and 2. Moving forward, we did get confirmation today that they are in progress with ductwork shop drawings. I'm just trying to get an ETA of where we stand with that in finer detail. Another big item here is the structural wood framing has been released. We did get approved submittals back from the design team. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, TSKP, and the rest of their consultants of pushing that through and making that a priority for us, knowing there is a lead time on that, as well as reviewing the samples with Tai Su of the color and the stain on it. Thank you guys very much for the due diligence there and helping us push that along. Very, very helpful there. Thank you, Jeff, again. So that's released. We have been coordinated with our structural steel vendor, Berlin Steel. They are fabricating clips to weld to the beams for these structural wood framing timbers to lay and sit. That's in progress. Moving on, specifically Prosser site, the tree root protection mat to be placed as we encroach the east side of the property closer to that existing oak tree along Tuxas Avenue. The site soil is continuing to be stockpiled. Any contaminated soil, Lois, at this point in time is going to be fully removed from the site. As you drive by the site, you'll see the Prosser any soil that's under the white poly, the clear poly on the processor site is the contaminated soil. Anything that is stockpiled currently with the poly over it is clean soil, right? Right now, we're gonna try to get characterization on the polluted soil to see where we can take it. As far as the clean, we're gonna have Maxwell to take a look if we could reuse it anywhere on site before we truck it off.
Thank you very much.
Alrighty. I am working on the lead data as far as where the recycled content, what it gets applied to, so I'm just waiting to hear back from Cynthia on that one. Okay. Site grading continuing as the Prosser Library continues along with the foundation excavations in prep for the cast in place concrete work. Cast in place concrete foundation work has commenced since the last time we met, with the foundation footing formed, rebar installed and tied, and concrete poured at the center retaining wall footing. After that, you're probably a week away from forming rebar final tie-ins for the actual retaining wall itself. We are continuing in other aspects of the foundation, concrete, the forming, rebar tie-ins, continuing in preparation for the next concrete pour, again, which is in about a week. Soon after that, once we get that foundation done, we are going to start the MEP underground utilities. We currently actually, that didn't make the list here, is an item of we started bringing in structural fill on the east side elevation of the project site that needs to go up 14 feet. We've done a couple feet in layers so far, as much as we can, but in order to top this thing off up to the 14 feet where we need to go, we need those foundation walls in. We need to create what I like to call a swimming pool, so we can start compacting that structural fill down and getting that up to level, up to grade. All right. Riley update. There's going to be really not much here until we get into the warmer summer months. Right now, again, it's currently being used as a material laydown area for all trades. We just had a delivery of steel embeds, anchor bolts, and plates dropped off to the site the other day. We're storing it there. We're continuing to bring stockpiled soil from our excavations for the footing on that side of the fence. We did meet, I did have Jeff from Richter Segan on site earlier on in the last week to review those 3 trees at the brook area. They're looking into it and what needs to be done there. If we do remove the trees, we're going to have to replace with some more vegetation just to stabilize that embankment there. So they're looking into it. All right. Moving on, requisitions and change order proposals. We do have the February 2024 requisition in of $1,374,088.43. Looking for review and approval on that. Colliers provided their review as well as TSKP, and we have a fully executed document. I'll leave it open to.
We can do it.
Want to do it now?
Yeah.
Okay. You want to show it, Anthony? Or
I
I
could
sent it out.
I could
Yeah.
I could pull it up.
We got it. We all got it.
You got it. I don't know if anybody needs to see it online today.
I will move approval of application number 8 in the amount of $1,374,088.43.
We have a second. Clark seconds. Is there any discussion? Bob?
One thing, everybody who got this, if you look at the tail end of this document, you'll see pictures of all the supplies and stuff that are sitting at Riley. It's an awful lot of stuff there. And I'm glad to see the stuff there because that means that Jason won't have to be juggling the schedule like he had to do at 330 Park. At least not as much.
And all of it is the structural steel material stored actually at the supplier fabricator's warehouse. All of it is the material ready to go. As we work out with our structural steel subcontractor, once we start erecting the steel, they're going to daisy chain the derricks of steel, which are the flatbeds, and coordinate it accordingly. So they're going to deliver one flatbed full of steel. They're going to hang it that day. Another derrick of steel will come in the next day, following all the way until we top off. All right.
Is
So
there
it's good.
protection there? Or
That's what I said.
Smaller pieces.
Yes, like as far as stored material work. So what we do is part of our stored material paperwork, we have a bill of sale, owner's right to entry, a certificate of insurance. So if anything does happen, if something does get damaged, right, we are covered and the owner is covered that way.
Or if it walks away.
Correct. 100%.
Good question. I think, did somebody not hear the,
Elizabeth has her hand raised.
oh, okay, I thought somebody didn't hear the Lois's question, but, were you done? Lo? Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. Yep.
Okay, so who's it?
Elizabeth?
I just had a question with how this is laid out. So when it says $1.3 million, is that in the budget or it's not in the budget?
No, this is their invoice. It's not a change order.
This is, yeah, part of the GMP. It's a progress billing based on percent complete and whatever we have for billing of stored material.
Oh, so the budget COPs,
I don't
If you
think.
look
we got
here,
to
it's the
this
requisition
yet.
for payment, which is our monthly billing.
Yeah, the COPs are change order proposals, Elizabeth, and I don't think you got to that section yet.
oh, I
These-
see.
They're
Okay,
just approving the bill for the work that's been completed to date.
thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just reviewed this now, Elizabeth, instead, since Anthony was going through his update, so we just did it now. Okay, is that good? Any other questions? Any other hands? Okay, so we'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
All right.
Thank you,
everybody.
Anthony.
All right, moving on to the next section, which is our COPs, our budgets. A couple of them have been submitted for review. I'll go down the list here. COP number 6, electric room layout revisions. That has been submitted for review. I have been going back and forth with RZ and Custom Electric on some scope of work and some pricing. We'll be able to finalize that hopefully within the next week. I broke out COP 7 before for 7A and 7B. 7A it's all the children's room MEP modifications that we had to do during the MEP coordination process. As you can see here, I have DCC in parentheses of our consultant of $30,914. That has been submitted for review at this point in time. That was for our consultant to go into the models, go into the systems, update it accordingly, run meetings, and then so on and so forth. 7B right now is the subcontractors portion of this COP 7. Right now, we do have a pretty good credit coming in from our electrician, about $14,000 for a change in light fixtures to a slimmer profile. And then there's a couple additional items in there for some ads based on some time from our MEP subs budgetary. But right now I do have a hard cost of about $13,000 or $14,000 from our electrician on that. So all in all, at the end of the day, you're looking for COP 7A and 7B, approximately $20,000 of added cost. COP 9, structural revisions and clarifications. That is going to be submitted for review. I do have hard pricing of $1,979 for that. I haven't gotten there because I just got the finalized pricing actually this morning. COP number 10 is the exterior routing of the TEL data coming from the Crown Castle handhole per PR number 6. That has been submitted for review of $31,758. This includes excavations, trenching, stone bedding, all the way across the site into the IT closet, as well as the pathway and running of conduit from that handhole all the way across the site to that back IT closet over there. COP number 11 is the door hardware clarifications and revisions. That also has been submitted for a review of $13,547. This wetlands one I like to bring up. It's hot off the press. I was actually talking about Sean today. The wetlands came back and provided a lot of additional work, berms, swales, RC 24-inch high pressure sanitary pipe in the road on Mountain Avenue on both sides up at the Prosser site, as well as the Riley site. I had Manafort, who was our site work contractor for a full scope of work, broke it down basically by line item, by divisions of their construction. Right now, we do have a hard cost, before I put this budget number in, of $145,000. Again, I'm gonna take that. I need to send it to the town. I need to send it to TSKP, SLR, and so on and so forth. I think there is a lot of added scope of work that may potentially be able to be reduced. Again, this is really not gonna be moving forward until everybody has a look at it, because it is a high ticket, it's a high cost COP, with the requirements from the wetlands.
Oh, go ahead, Lois.
But you have your wetlands permit,
We do have the wetlands permit.
and these things were not defined when you got the
They-
permit?
They were not.
Is
It was-
that a miss? Yeah.
I don't know. I gotta dig more into detail as it just.
Lois, so there was a review by wetlands, but they didn't complete the review until after the bid. And so that's why it was sent out as a proposal request, because that's when all the comments came out and had to be reviewed by the design team. So that's how that came to fruition. So now we're, Anthony's rooting it out to see what the costs are and, if there's, any issues that, as he just mentioned, that maybe we don't have to do, that's what he's going through right now with the design
Right,
team.
this is worst case scenario that
Yeah.
Manafort put together, but I'm assuming that talking to the town wetlands department and whatnot, we would be able to reduce some scope. They have, Sean, I was looking at it with you, the berms of mulch, they have $20,000 worth of mulch added to the project, and it's $10,000. We were looking at the breakout of police detailing, because all this work is getting done in the road on Mountain Avenue. So there's it's broken down very well by Manafort. We just need somebody to help verify scope of work, and essentially if it's required, if it needs to be
Right.
done, if we could reduce the scope of work.
But we got the permit well before the bid documents went out.
Right,
So
right.
I guess I have the same question.
Right, Scott, do you have
Lois.
any more history on that, from that time?
What was that, Nancy? I couldn't hear you.
I think we got the permit well before the bid documents
Yeah, we got
went
the
out.
permit, but the design team would have to respond because there was a lot of back and forth with the civil drawings that occurred. And well into the bid period where it missed an addendum. So it just didn't make it. But we had the permit, but there were a lot of comments that still had to be addressed.
Gotcha.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
think,
Richard
you know
could
what,
shed
Nancy, I
probably
can
more
pull up
light
the
on
permit
it.
and see if there's any verbiage on there, some
Yeah.
language that
I'm
puts
sure there
a
was.
caveat on the actual permit itself. So we're issuing something like this permit in regards to this criteria being met, blah, 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 so on and so forth.
I'm sure that's in there.
So we got a lot of digging to do. I don't like $125,000. I saw it, I almost fell off my chair. But we were Sean and I, this afternoon, hot off the press, we were kind of going through it. I think Manafort did a fine job of breaking it down into detail. But we're gonna get that. I'm not gonna officially put a whole COP together. What I'm going to do is just forward that proposal from Manafort, and then we can work out, the scope of work from that point forward. But they did price it as a worst case scenario.
But you are going to be doing this in conjunction with the wetlands officer, so that you know what pieces are absolutely.
Correct,
essential.
and that's when I forwarded it to the town, to Nancy and Mark. They'll carry it on to the wetlands as well as TSKP and SLR.
So did this also involve the state wetlands, or is it just the local?
I think it's just local.
Okay.
Anthony, and there's no schedule impacts because it's in the road, it's separate from your construction, or will it impact? your
Correct.
schedule?
Well, right now, I'm still trying to figure that out,
Okay.
but again, if we could obviously figure out the actual scope of work moving forward and what the wetlands what they will agree with, what we could get away with, what we could delete and move from the scope of work, obviously we'll fit it into the construction duration. But we have 300 linear feet of swales. We have 300 linear feet of RCP pipe, which is a high volume sanitary line. So there is some trenching, demolition, concrete sidewalk removal. It's a whole slew of things.
On each side of the.
Correct.
It's on the Riley side and the Prosser side. It's part of the issue.
You said you added 300 feet of RC.
Yeah, I gotta actually, you know what, if I could. Now, even talk about it offline real quick, but I gotta look at the details. There's a whole list of items.
Okay.
Alrighty. I wanted to get it out there today for everybody's attention, because again, it's not one of those, you know, $2,000 change orders. It's a pretty big ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah, Anthony, I just gave,
COP number 13, the unforeseen underground existing foundations of the Masonic Temple. I did get hard pricing at the end of the day today. Looked at it with Sean, who was in the field office. It came in at $8,695 cost. So we are going to take that cost to Manafort and apply it to our impediment allowance of $8,695. The work was all tracked on T&M and signed off by Jason, the site superintendent. And then COP 14, I have struck out here. There is no cost there. I worked it out with Stanford Wrecking for that additional dust control water and the trucks that they needed to keep the dust control measures down during that mass demo phase.
Thank you. Yes, Bob.
A couple questions. Number one, structural revision and clarification. Can you?
There was some minor revisions to some footing elevations in regards to some rain leaders. So that cost there was, I think, primarily for our MEP consultant to go back in the model and adjust that. So on and so forth. Right now, I don't believe there was a cost in there for any of our MEP trades at this point in time, nor a cost for our concrete subcontractor to lower those frames.
Okay. And 11 hardware clarifications, revisions. What is that?
That was the same one that we talked about for the past couple of weeks here. It was some lock set revisions on some interior doors, as well as some exterior doors. Other than that, I don't believe there was any electronic revisions to this PR that came out. Jeff, if you have anything to elaborate on that door hardware clarification and revisions.
I spoke to Deanna about that some time ago. I guess that was a meeting early on with the staff to clarify what gets what on the doors. So that was an early meeting, and that came out of that meeting.
All right.
Yeah, this is Richard. I do want to comment on.
Okay, go ahead.
So these are change order proposals. These are not actual change orders, they're proposals.
So
None of the work has been done except you are tracking change order proposal number 13, the unforeseen underground foundations that were a surprise to everyone. And I think I just heard you say it's going to be a wash. That's not going to be a
because we're applying allowances established in our GMP for that.
Yeah, that's not going to be a cost to the owner.
No.
As far as some of the others, I would like to get into these with Jeff. I haven't seen the breakdowns for them. I'm a little surprised myself by COP number 12, wetland clarifications. I believe that we did have wetlands approval and we had comments, so I'm a little baffled by it. I need to get my head into it with Jeff to be able to explain what that one is.
Yeah, I'm just hoping it's not in that whole process where it went back and forth and they kept asking for more stuff for Rock to give. So I gave Rock a heads up just now. So if we can get that breakdown and everything, Anthony, from you sooner than later.
Jeff, what I'll do is I'll forward that to you. I'm not going to put a slap our proposal sheet on top of it. What I'll do is, since it only affects one subcontractor, which is Manafort, I will forward you their proposal and their breakdown of what they saw based on, you know, that 2-page, you know, PR or ASI that came out with all the ads.
And of course, as Richard's sort of hinting at, when we get these things, we get all the backup and everything from them. We have to review everything with our consultants and just decide, oh, you know, if this is realistic or not. Then we usually have a dialogue with Downs, and then we figure out, yes, we can, you know, not have this so much here and do this here, or this is ridiculous, throw this out. So we're having those discussions in the background as well. So
right. So like,
well, if it's ridiculous, then typically we won't give it to you, Jeff.
Right.
Right. Yeah, let's make
All
sure. we
right,
get
so,
that straight.
so Richard, just for your note, anything that it says submitted for review has been sent over to Sean and Jeff. Anything that has actually COP 7A should be submitted for review as well. We could get rid of that budget in parentheses, but everything else that you see budget for is a budget number. Other than, COP 12, which I got hard pricing on at like 4 o'clock tonight.
I think we're forgetting COP 15, which is amount of money to clone Jeff.
Oh, we did miss that one.
I thought that was a credit.
Oh, ouch.
That was no cost, no cost.
I gotta get you, Jeff, every once in a while. That was a softball right there, buddy.
Anthony, are any of these time sensitive?
Right now, time sensitive would be 7A. It is our consultant. They are out some money. I like to get their invoices paid, and I can't do so without your blessing and approval.
And we had a discussion about that one, Anthony, and you were going to get back to me on that.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna budge on that number, Jeff.
Jeff, if we
All
need to have a separate meeting on that, we certainly can do that.
Okay.
All right.
But in the meantime, Jeff, also, I have the subs working on part 7B. And right now I have about a $13,000 credit from Custom Electric and a couple small little ads from some other subs there. So net
Okay,
value of that COP would be about 20 grand, 21.
Okay, so we'll have the discussion of both and then figure out how to get that to zero as close as we can.
So the next building committee meeting, I believe, is on March 13th. Can we try to
Yes.
resolve this COP 7A and 7B so that we can get action on the part of the committee on the 13th?
Yeah, we need to resolve it by then.
That's exactly,
Yeah, it's gonna
Richard,
be
exactly,
before that.
that's a great point. We definitely would like that.
All right, let's do that.
Yeah, I don't
Lois?
Fair
I
enough.
have one more question
Fair
relating
enough.
to number 12.
Mhm.
To what extent will the state be involved in any of that, since it's a state highway, I think?
It is, I gotta look at how they broke it down. I know there's gonna be some MDC involvement. So there's gonna be, it's a to-do. This is a big one, right? I gotta look at the proposal too, just in case maybe Manafort put some off-shift work, because at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, that road all day long is just cars and trucks lined up, zooming back and forth. So I gotta look if maybe they put, some off shift time in there, because it maybe does quiet down a little bit later on after 5, 6 o'clock, but it's invasive.
Really doesn't quite,
It does.
I just want to be sure
that
that
intersection doesn't
you
quite
have
down
all
to
the
57.
pieces before we.
Correct.
Get it.
And that's what,
Yeah.
that's what we want to do for the whole team. That's why, TFKP is going to be involved, SLR, the town. That's why I wanted to bring it up today as soon as possible, because yes, it is very involved and there's a lot of moving, targets and a lot of people that need to have eyes on this.
Clark?
Could the building committee be involved in the correspondence on that change order?
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll forward it to the proposal I got from Manfort to Mark and Nancy and Patrick, and then we'll have you then distribute it accordingly to whoever.
With the backup and what other
It's
information?
just Manafort's proposal.
Okay.
They're the only subcontractor affected. I will give you attach the ASI as with the proposal that we got from Manafort. They did like I said, a very detailed breakdown of the costs associated with this change or these added items. So you'll be able to cross-reference everything
And the permit.
and the purpose. That's a good point. I think there's any little small unforeseen
print.
verbiage down at the
Fine
bottom
print.
of it. Correct. Correct. So, alrighty.
Okay, any more questions on the CLPs before we let Anthony move on? Anybody over there?
No official one tonight.
You do,
What is that?
2.
We got.
What is that? Oh, the COP, the $40,000.
change
Oh,
order.
the GMP change order number 2,
Right.
right? GMP change order number 2, I forgot to put on here, was for the COP that got approved at last committee meeting of the $40,000 for the mill.
Right.
we're looking to get that, formally approved to the GMP.
Well, we may as well do it now since it's here. Okay, so any questions on that before we take a motion? But I guess I better take a motion first. I have a motion to approve the 40,000 for millwork.
I'll move approval of change order number 2 in the amount of $40,000.
Second, Bob White. I'm sorry, I'm an hour behind.
Thank you, Bob. Welcome. Okay,
Robert.
any discussion regarding this?
I'm
40
sorry, who seconded? I missed it.
Bob, Bob,
sorry.
yeah. Any discussion regarding this, number 2 before we did talk about this at the last meeting and, we're coming up for the 40K for the millwork. Nancy, I can't really, because anybody.
No hands.
Okay, then all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
No problem, right? Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Anthony.
All right, thank you. Last but not least, the favorite part of the show, progress photos. Hopefully everybody could see here. I'll zoom in the best I can without cutting everything off. This was the start of the retaining wall footing. As you can see here, this was the forms that were set up, as well as rebar going in and being tied for the footing map. All right, we got every tri-state was on site reviewing all the rebar temperature. At that point in time, everything was covered to be a frost-free condition at that point in time. Everything went well, everything was signed off, passed inspection by the building department as well. As you could see here, we have a bulkhead at this point in time, which is going to stop the concrete pour for the footing at a certain location to be continued once that concrete cures. As you can see here, we have some rebar above. In the next photo, you'll see all that rebar for safety concerns capped with a red cap, providing any types of trip falls in the impalement. Again,
Impalement especially bad.
absolutely. As you can see in this one, I try to take a full shot. The concrete was poured at this point in time. We're starting to cover it, make sure everything can cure properly with the cold weather coming up. That's that whole center footing for the retaining wall. As you can see here on the right-hand side, that's where all that struck 14 feet up from there, structural field going in. Once we create that, I like to call it the pool. All right, you can see the rebar caps have been installed by the end of the day, just for safety against all the potential impalements or sticks that can happen. Right. Again, we have everything covered as far as cold weather protection wise, to make sure that the curing is up to par and it gets done. And then the last couple pages here, you can see all the forms have been stripped off. All the caps have been placed on the rebar going down the line. Those vertical rebars are for once the concrete wall it starts to get formed and poured. Right now, that is that whole center footing for that retaining wall. Again, to the left-hand side, looking towards Mountain Avenue, you have Manafort starting to bring in some of that structural fill of 14 feet that we talked about. Moving down the list, this is just a closer shot of some piers. This is where the structural steel, some of the structural steel columns are going to go and sit. Again, we have the footing poured. At this point in time, we have the vertical sticks of rebar going in. We'll form that up to create the concrete post to sit the, I should say, to sit the steel. And then we have just a closer view of the footing itself, actually how wide it is and how extensive it is going down the center of the building there. Again, that concrete wall that's going up for the retaining wall, I think it's 12 inches thick. It's going to go up about 14 feet. If you guys do drive by the site currently, they start putting the forms up and they're going to go up higher from where they are right now. But so that's kind of an update. Right now we have structural fill going on to the left and we have concrete being formed, tied in for rebar and pouring. I guess the exciting times are once concrete is complete and the structural steel starts flying. That's a real big milestone. But there is some work to be done there. Other than that, does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns?
Anybody there?
Have you been hindered by any weather?
Other than today, nobody was on site today, doing that. It was pouring pretty good for most of the day. We couldn't do any structural fill, any compaction tests. It was just too wet.
Yeah, but this
but
is New England, and we always have snow and ice and that kind of condition. So have you built into your schedule a certain number of snow days?
No, Richard, we don't predict the weather. I'm sure TSKP doesn't either.
No, but you can certainly
yeah.
call, the airport and talk to the weather people up there, and you know what the average number
Yeah.
of snow days are.
I don't know that we're looking to increase the cost of time on site for, snow days. We really haven't had any snow
Right,
days.
I mean, too,
Maybe one
Scott,
during
what we've done in the past too, Richard, is if we lose a day, sometimes a sub will come to us and ask Jason if they can work Saturday to make up the time. At obviously no cost to the owner.
Oh, so what I'm hearing you saying is there've been no delay due to snow.
Well, if there was a big, huge rain event and, everything was down for a week, then we would, be talking.
But you haven't experienced that yet.
No, not yet.
Okay.
Bite your tongue.
Spring is here.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, thank goodness. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it. I'm all out of here.
Thank you, Anthony. All right, moving on to the agenda, TSKP is up next. Jeff, is that you or is Abby on or?
I believe Abby's going to give show a little McMahon, what we're doing with McMahon. Is that correct, Abby?
Yes, a little progress update from McMahon, and I will share my screen in a little bit. So we've had several layouts done, and I know Elizabeth, Allison, Chris, and their entire team have really come together in this short time and pulled everything together. Thank you very much for that. And we've had some very intense, long meetings last week, and I think we've nailed down what the final layout needs to be, and we understand how this building is going to function and what kind of services will be offered. Most importantly, the library staff know what this building is going to be and what services will be offered. There were a few concerns that we have addressed, and I am going to one second. Where's my layout? Okay. So after a lot of discussion and brainstorming and whatnot, we've finally come to the conclusion that what you have in front of you is going to be the best layout for the library. So a couple of things we covered are, one, in the previous layouts, we did not have a dedicated children's play area or a story time area. And there was another concern about the teens and the children's area being too close without any acoustic separation, which can sometimes become a little uncomfortable. So what was done is we ended up giving the teens their own little empire. To be separated with some glass walls, and they will have their own little space. There are some tables, chairs, some lounge seating, some computer tables, some bean bags. This is more like a cafe type seating, so they can look outside. We also were able to accommodate some amount of shelving for the teens, so it becomes their own little private space. And once we did that, we automatically were able to divide this L-shaped children's space into maybe keeping this area as the middle school age kids section, and there'll be some books. This teens room wall, the intention is to have about a 30-inch wall, a solid wall, above which will all be glass. So that gives us some space to give a couple of shelving units along this wall. And there will be other mobile units also, along with some seating for the middle school kids. Down here, this is mainly the younger kids section. We've tried to separate this space with just some interesting furniture pieces, some low benches, and maybe coupled with a few browser bins or even some mobile shelving units. Now, this is, I know it's up in the question that this can become just a regular mobile shelving unit, but we'll finalize that soon. But this sort of gives a little more space, floor space for either playtime, or these benches can become the librarian's reading seat. And there are also more benches on this side for parents or grandparents to sit while the children can sit on the floor and enjoy more of the open space here. There will be more computers for these kids, and there's going to be shelving along this wall also. Everything else pretty much stays. Now, we were able to put in a few other mobile shelving units here. This can either be used for either this age group, or maybe even the teens collection might spill out here if need be. So it's been decided that this space between the vestibule is going to become the service desk area. Both sides, we have a librarian to welcome the patrons. With this particular unit is going to be more of a customized unit, because it was hard for me to find anything that was already that was a running line item to fit the space and the purpose. But what from this picture, what we see is there's going to be one proper desk unit for each of the librarians. Out here is going to be a book return unit with a depressible book truck tucked under. And this is just a sort of a finishing type unit. It's going to have some display in the front on the patron side, and on the back side, it can just have bookshelves for holds and pickups. We're just showing a book cart here to make sure that there is enough space for book carts to move around. And this is a similar unit, but because this is not needed to be a book return unit, it can just be a storage cabinet, either a locking one, and this unit can also have display shelves like this. So this has a multiple functioning happening in this space, with the book displays, the holds, the pickups, and we are able to achieve a lot of things within this area. Now, at this point, we are trying to move towards getting power and data under the carpet, and we're still researching some products, but looks like that's going to be the best way to bring in the needed infrastructure into this space. And also there is a lot of, Chris is working on trying to make this as wireless as possible, so we don't have to run data wiring everywhere. But along the walls, though, wherever possible, we will run as much wire molding as possible to get in enough power and data. So now the business center is located within this 14-foot ceiling area. And there's going to be at least 8 computers, and then some other tables for some print release and Scanex, fax machine, things like that. Out here on both ends, we'll have one is going to be an OPAC station, which is like a catalog station. And the other side is a self-check station. Now, there was a question about the self-check being maybe part of the service desk. The problem is the self-check needs to be wheelchair accessible, and we're still working on trying to incorporate that here. If not, it would be here, and the self-check needs to be close enough to the librarian, because from personal experience, I know that I never am able to scan the books correctly, so I always call for the librarian to help. So the proximity of the self-check with the librarian's desk is very important. This reading space and these privacy pods have all stayed. We've managed to, I think we had this in the last layout I showed, some amount of lounge seating with some tables, maybe a small bench here because the space gets a little tighter for anything else. There was an existing book drop accessed from the exterior. Now we discussed this quite a bit, and it was decided that that book drop will be eliminated from this project because it was not very useful and it was out in the open, and that it cannot function that way. And because we still kept this one existing book drop that goes into the staff lounge, and which was actually more protected, and it seemed like keeping this and also adding this book return unit into the service area was plenty for the space. So this will be eliminated. Instead, what was asked was maybe have a monitor, and I'm showing a 60-inch monitor for when this becomes sort of a community space or a presentation space. This little nook is now going to become a little for periodicals and newspapers display. We're proposing some sloped display shelves that can be hinged units. So when you lift the shelf, there's still storage shelves under. There was a request for those type of storage because they save up to a week's worth of newspapers, and some extra shelves will also accommodate periodicals. And we're still discussing what this could be. It can be just regular shelving, or it could be part of the same system. This back wall of shelving is now going to become a mix of some flat shelves like these at the bottom, and then we're going to have a few sloped display shelves. The idea being that when the patrons walk in, they would be attracted to a nice display wall of some new books or library chosen books or whatever type of material that needs to be displayed. And what the typical way this would be used is the patrons would walk in, pick up a new book that they're interested in, sit, read for some time, or maybe even borrow the book. So having some lounge pieces along with this display seems to serve that purpose. We had to cut down one of these units, and I'm sorry about these graphics not really coming out well. These are just 3-foot units, and this one should have a line, but the line is not showing up. So it used to be 4 units before, now they're just 3, but it gives us a little more extra space for sitting and lounging here. The office, it was established that only 2 desks would be needed, but they would need to be more permanent desks. So the plan is to give a proper desk with some storage below, and maybe even some upper cabinets if possible. Just showing a book cart here because which librarian does not have a book cart near them? And a floor copier was requested in this space. Another thing that was requested was a window within the office. We've put one in for now, and some storage cabinets. No changes made to the staff lounge. We still have a staff lounge to serve 4 people. We'll have new casework coming here, a new depressible book truck to receive all the books that are being returned, a new refrigerator. And these little curb units on either side, just to bring some fun and interesting pieces into this space and still maintain this symmetry in the design. They look something like this. They're curved and they have at least 3 shelves. Now, almost all the furniture in this project can be mobile, except this circulation desk pieces, which I think at this point, the way we are designing it, it's better that they are not on casters. And of course, all the shelving that will be attached to the walls, the privacy pods, they can move, but not very easily. Everything else, all the tables will have casters, locking casters, all the shelving, all the freestanding shelving will have locking casters. The benches will have glides, but they are lightweight, they can move, they will not be ganged. Even the computer tables at this point, we are looking to have casters on the tables, on these computer tables also. So this gives a nice functional building with very flexible furniture, and we think this will work well. And apart from maybe few last details that needs to be covered, like the next step for us is to pick the actual pieces for each of these furniture items. I'm already showing you a few here, but like this chair, this lounge chair, we need to really bring down those details together. Apart from that, this is pretty much what the new revised McMahon is going to be.
Thank you, Abby. This is great. I guess at this point, let me just open it up to see, does Elizabeth or Allison or Chris, did you want to add any comments before we go to questions?
Yes, Vice Chair, thank you.
Sure.
I wanted to start off by saying thank you so much to Abby, Jeff, Rashard, Jeanette, the TSKP team. Just wow, we had so many issues. The biggest one being that teen space, being with the kids. And I really think that this is a perfect way to be able to incorporate multiple ages so that parents and guardians will feel really good in this space, regardless of what teens are talking about. And we all know how those types of things can go. We're also really happy with all of the space that is still designated for youth. I really think our youth and our families will feel really good about the space configuration. This is our best approach to still having as close to a full service library as we can with this smaller footprint of McMahon Wittenberry Library. And we've been working really quickly, and we haven't had any time to really marinate on any of this. We were like, changes were still being made probably right up to the start of this meeting today. So we're still thinking through all of this. And I want to also talk about, we are really, the staff are trying to think through the duality of having, part of this being that fixed footprint that Abby just mentioned, and the other part being that mobile footprint where things are always moving and we can adapt as needed. So if there's programming, we can do that. If there's tutors, we can do that. But I'm still concerned about the space feel of all of this. And that is something that, the BPL leadership team met today when we were talking, and we really want to go to McMahon and kind of get a feel for how this will be in that space, and making sure there's enough open space still within this layout as it is. And I think that right when you walk in, you'll kind of feel that a bit with only having the service desks and that immediate entryway. But I'm curious to again sit in the space and get a feel for it with all of this. We're also really happy about that, you know, these open sight lines, you know, the line in that youth department, you have that full view looking out, so there'll be a lot of natural light there. And then, yeah, where Abby's pointing now, so that's going to be a lot of glass and a lot of natural light coming in. And also we'll still have that big open window on the Blue Hills side. So I think those two areas of light will be really, really great as well, and will help open the space a bit. We are also thinking through the technology, and I know we are really leaning towards wireless, but we want to be 1,000% sure that that solution will work. I know we just had our IT director resign in the town of Bloomfield, and we're now going to be going on to our third IT director during the duration of this project. And we really want to just make sure we get that right, because number one for this space will be addressing the digital divide. So making sure we have that seamless approach to everyone being able to both plug in and access the wireless and have the electrical work throughout. So I know that there's a lot of cost considerations that go into that. I'm just hoping that we can feel really confident when we say yes to this plan, that all of that is going to work seamlessly, in concert with with the greater town of Bloomfield, but also just here on this footprint. And so in order to do that, I know that Chris is working through some ideas of how to have, so we're going to have these set computer stations. And I know if people count, it might not look like a lot, but we're also going to have laptops and those types of devices where people can just, borrow it when they're there and then go sit where they want. So you're not going to be limited to just where you see the computers in this footprint. So again, we're still thinking through all of that. And again, that idea of that the fixed versus the mobile, and we're trying to play with all of those ideas. The other thing, so in terms of collections, and I know there's a lot, we're hearing feedback from the community about the concern of lack of collection space here. I know we just got some numbers and we're still looking through all those numbers, Abby, that you gave us. But it really looks like the youth collection and the teen collection is really going to be quite robust, almost as robust as what we had been planning the whole time. The one hit that's going to come is with the number of adult materials. And again, we're still thinking through that and what that might look like. But that we're going to probably also switch up how we do holds. And so there's going to be one whole place where people can do kind of self checkout for holds, where you can go. And so we're really going to work on streamlining and updating that service to kind of reflect the loss of adult collection space. And again, we're still working through that. Another part of conversations we really haven't had in full yet is we want to make sure that, I know Glenn's on this phone call, but we want to work closely with Public Works and have maybe another working meeting with Public Works and TSKP and look at some of the things that we've been thinking through all together. Again, we just want to feel really confident in especially the IT infrastructure and the electrical infrastructure when we hit go on this. Including a people counter. We want to have really accurate information coming into us, as that's something that, really futuristic libraries, we're getting real-time data, and we want to make sure that that's all wired appropriately. And Abby, I'm really glad to hear that we have that office window. That's also really important. I mean, otherwise that space is going to feel like you're in a cell. And it's not going to be a good working space for our staff. So I'm excited about seeing how that window looks in real time too. And then finally, I wanted to just talk about the study pods. And I know here on this current one, we have 3 study pods. So that was one of the top things that we heard from the community when we worked with the consultants about what they wanted, and that was private study spaces and meeting rooms. So we know with the 3,000 square foot reduction in size, we're not going to be able to do that. But we do think that these study pods are going to be really a great solution to this. And as we are moving forward with getting some, we're gonna I think we're gonna wait to talk about this, but we're gonna be soliciting some feedback from the community. And one of the big questions is, do we want 3 2-person study pods, or do we want 1 2-person and 1 4-person? Thinking, so we're trying to think through some of that. But that being said, I'm really curious to hear about what the rest of the library building committee thinks about this. And again, I just want to say thank you so much to TSKP, because you really delivered in a very short amount of time on so much of our feedback.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. Anybody else have a comment before we go to questions? Okay, so this is really amazing. I mean, an incredible amount of work that's gone into this, and thank you to everyone who's been so diligently working to get this finalized. I want to just bring up a couple of quick things. So, the idea of the window in the office, I mean, great idea, but I thought that when we talked about the McMahon-Winterberry, that we were not going to alter the the footprint of that building. So I think before that gets approved, I think we would have to know what the cost is, or what has to happen to put that window in. So, maybe that's just something that, Abby, I don't know if comes from you, or Dan, does that come from Dan, or from Glenn?
Well, what we're gonna do is, I talked to this with Richard earlier, and we decided that maybe it's in everybody's best interest to have it as an alternate. So we will show it, but it'll be an alternate whether we have the money for it or not.
Okay, no, that's a good idea. Yeah, because I would just be concerned about that. I mean, if we could put that, again, it would be great to have that, but if we could use that money somewhere else that's making the, meeting what the needs are of the programming for the library staff and the public, then I don't know, maybe that's the better choice, but of course I'd leave that up to Elizabeth and her team. Okay, my other question was, I was, again, with the front desk or the circulation desk being in the center there, I think when we talked about this before, one of the concerns was about that being too cold for the library staff in the wintertime, because it's right between the doors, and the doors would be opening and closing on both sides. Will that still be an issue if we make that a permanent circulation desk?
So I guess one of the solutions is to try and have like a little space heater if need be. But it seemed like functionality wise and being able to service both the adult section and the children's section, this seemed to be the ideal location. And also considering that the librarians are not sitting here all the time, they are constantly moving around. It seemed like maybe the cold may not be a big issue. If the library staff want to take that question.
Are there also, when you enter the doors from the street or the outside, is there a second door, or is it just one door and you're into the building?
It's a vestibule, so it's an airlock basically. So the first set opens up, and it's a deeper vestibule.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then we come in, and that's also an 8'6" ceiling in that area as well. So I know there's some supply registers and diffusers in that ceiling that we could look at, and maybe Glenn and I can talk about, where they can actually go. Maybe they're closer to the doors, so that it's not such an issue. But Abby's correct that if worst comes to worst, we'll just make sure there's enough receptacles in there for little heaters or something if they need it. But I don't know how often these doors are going to be, opening. And as Abby said, the library staff's going to be all over the place. So we got a whole new rooftop unit coming in, new electrical panels. So it's going to be the Mercedes-Benz, hopefully, with Glenn's work and what he's doing with that mechanical system. So hopefully it's not going to be too big of a deal. But yes, that's a vestibule. So first set of doors open up, you step in, the second doors open up.
Good. Okay, thank you. Okay, I just wanted to open this up to the rest of the building committee. Is there a hand? Oh, Ava, okay, I'm sorry, Ava, go right ahead. I think you're on mute.
Yep.
Here you go.
Thanks, Patrick. I
Yeah.
just have a question about the window. If it's on an alternate list, in the future, if we were able to come up with, say, a small grant, would that be something that would be convertible? Could we then add that window later so it's not set in stone for 50, 60 years?
Well, yeah, because one doesn't exist.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll take that question. Ava, of course you can. So this does, so Patrick, I heard him say, does this change the footprint? It does not change the footprint. The perimeter of the existing building will remain unchanged. It's easy to insert a window in the exterior wall and put in a modern window that will be insulated glass, etc. And if you can afford to do it now, that's great. It's nice to get rid of all of this stuff on the wish list at this time. But if you like to have it as an alternate, you'll at least be able to identify the cost. And maybe if it has to be done later, it could be done with separate funding, perhaps a grant, and it could be added later.
Okay, thank you, because McMahon is already much less than we anticipated when we're down to the point of discussing a window. I just wanted to be sure we would have options in the future. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Richard.
thank you, Ava. Other questions from the committee? Bob, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Yes.
My concern is just that, Abby, has there been consultation with Public Works about the cost of, the stuff you're talking about doing that's not part of FF&E, like the glass, partitions and a few other things, so that, the total cost, for things other than FF&E doesn't start eating into the FF&E?
Well, that's what we're gonna do. We got a meeting scheduled coming up soon with Glenn to sit down with him and show him what we got. I've been kind of holding back discussing details with him yet because I wanted to finalize this layout with the library staff and Abby. But what we're looking at is basically at a minimum, we're looking at obviously the ADA toilet bathroom section there on the lower right. That's a must. And then Glenn's 17 items. That's a big chunk of this. And then on the west side, southwest side, there is that T111 encapsulated, God knows what, in that wall. So we're going to remove that entire wall and make that a storefront system. And then the only other thing that recently came up was enclosing this teen area. And I'm looking at a butt glaze 1/2 inch thick glass that's from a company out of South Windsor. I mean, that's one possibility. It's called Commercial Storefront Services, and it's a very elegant, very clean butt glaze glass system. So it's going to feel really open and modern in there. So those are the three major components other than Glenn's list and the vestibules, the new glazing for the vestibule doors. The rest is all DPW work, the 17 items, and then the small window, if we can get it in there in the staff area there.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Lois?
Yes, what do you think the capacity of the building will be in terms of how many people can be in it at once? And just so that I have a visual sense, how many kids do you think could fit in the teen area at once? I'm not talking about people trying to see if they can get into a, tiny little car, but people just sitting, working in the teen area. That will give me a visual sense, I think, of what we're looking at.
Well, every one of these seats can be occupied, and so we have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 14, 15, 16 kids in here at one point.
16.
Yeah.
Good.
I wouldn't go more than.
How about the facility as a whole, including the librarians? I'm just talking about human beings in the space.
Occupancy.
Yeah.
Better word, occupancy.
Well, that's one thing on my list. And I'm sure Richard was about to speak up. I gotta look at that code sheet. We had the addition code sheet done, and now have to amend that for this. So I got to look at that. That's probably on my list of things to do, to figure out what the maximum occupancy is based on that square footage and based on the means of egress. So I'll have to get back to you on that, if that's a correct statement, Richard.
Yeah, so what you're talking about is the code permitted occupancy. That's one figure that the building official will look at, make sure we have proper egress for that occupant load. But I think what the question is really how many can comfortably be in the building and do what they need to do.
Right.
And so I think you just got to figure for the teen area, that's about 16. And then you have the adult area in the northeast corner. And it looks like you have 24 people at tables plus 2, 4 plus 5. So that's 29 people in that area. And then 2 people in each of those pods. So that's another 4. So that's, where was I? 33? 33 people here in the northeast quadrant.
And then we have the others as well. The
Yeah,
middle
so
kids and the middle school kids.
help me with that, Abby. So we have.
So for the middle school kids, well, typically I would count the number of seats to be the maximum number of people that can comfortably be in that space. Here we have about 8 chairs, and I'm showing a couple of ottomans. So about 10 kids can be comfortably working in this space, along with 2 more here at the computers. Whether this is for middle school or the younger kids, we can for now count this to be middle school because I don't think
So that's 12.
Yeah. And then this is pretty much floor space, and I'm showing 2 benches. Each bench typically can have 1 adult at least. So say 4 adults here. And on this floor, I would imagine like 10 kids, 10 young kids maybe. And then of course we have this pod here. So let's say.
So that's 22 plus another 2. So that's 24.
Yeah.
And I guess I would like to ask Elizabeth if she, I know this building is smaller than we had hoped, but given that number of possibilities, assuming that they break down in those ways, can you do what you have to do?
This building is not big enough to do everything we need to do. That being said, that's why I want to go spend time over there and try to figure out about these numbers and really think it through and get a feel for the space. If we are successful, this building is not going to be big enough. But the other thing that we did not say that we also are going to have here is which we haven't really talked to Abby about, is temporary chairs. I'm not thinking of the name of them right now. So we're also going to have a cart of chairs that is going to have Chris and Allison. I don't know how many chairs are on that cart that we're also going to put to use as needed.
Folding chairs on the
Folding
cart?
chairs. Thank you. Yes. And that cart has about 30 chairs on it.
So, on a typical day, it seems like 100 people could be accommodated there, including the librarians.
Yes.
And since people don't usually stay all day, that means that a variety of people could be there. That's very reassuring. Thank you.
Yes, and Lois, that also hints at like the ebb and flow of libraries. So for instance, and that's something we'll have to work with the community. Because I used to be the branch manager for the Albany branch of Hartford Public Library, which is straight shot down Blue Hills Avenue. And on an average day, when I managed that location, we had 350 people a day on an average day. And of course, the most busy time of the day was the after school crowd. And the community kind of learned how to adjust to that. So if you were an adult who was not a kid person, you didn't come from 3 to 6 or whatever. And I think that that's, this is a community library, and I think we'll kind of learn how those ebbs and flows work.
Are we looking for a motion to accept this tonight, or
Well,
is there more work to do?
I think what I'm hearing is there is more work to do, but I was gonna ask that question of Abby. There was the calendar, the schedule that you provided, Abby, so I just wanted to, when we're done with, any other questions that anybody has, I wanted to go back to that schedule to find out when exactly you need an answer, a final answer for, approving this. So is that at our 13th? Would that be at the March 13th LBC meeting, or would it be at the March 27th LBC meeting?
Okay, I am going to bring up the schedule that was
Yeah.
next on the list.
Okay, could I, before we do that, could I just ask, see if there are any other questions or comments on this? Okay, Bob?
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around where the building committee would come in to deal with the minute details like this, like what's gonna be placed where within the building, because we're not doing that to a large extent at Foster, as I understand. Why would we be doing it at McMahon? I would think that would be something that the staff with TSKP would do, and that's fine.
You are correct, Bob. You are correct. You are relying on staff.
Yeah, other than questioning some of the things in terms of cost, I'm not sure if the building committee really wants to get into that kind of
No.
detail.
No, I don't think so.
Informational, yes.
We
It's
just want
important
a
for us to
date.
have it.
That's really what we're looking at when she shows us the calendar.
Right.
Right. I mean, we don't have to approve the FF&E, Nancy, do we?
No, but,
No.
well, yes, you'll have to approve
will.
the
The
purchase,
amount, the purchase.
the amount when we
Right.
do
And
it.
that's what I would think I was trying to get to, is that
We don't have.
when
cost
does
yet.
that have to be finalized for?
She's gonna show us, I think,
Yeah,
the schedule.
Okay,
Yeah.
Is
Yeah,
that what
okay.
you're gonna show us now, Abby?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah, okay, perfect. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
But I agree with you, Bob. I think it's up to Elizabeth and her team
Yeah.
to make those decisions on what they need and want.
Yeah, our concern is cost.
Right, cost. Mhm.
Okay, great, Abby. I'd like to make some comments on this schedule. Can you enlarge this a little bit? All right, you've seen a timeline that we presented at the last meeting. We've made some edits to it. You can see that we drew a line through some of the items and we added some text in bold. And so, first of all, if you look in February, we have previously talked about when we initially were brought in to discuss the project at McMahon, we have really thought about it in the traditional way that we would have a preliminary layout, and then we would have a design development, and then we would have CDs or construction documents, as you can see here in March. We drew lines through design development. We drew a line through CDs because the approach here on this project, based upon my understanding, is that we're doing a design build set of documents that Glenn can use to get proposals from vendors, subcontractors, and whatnot. So what we need to do in March is to have a set of design build documents so that Glenn can get proposals from subcontractors, which will probably happen in April. And I say assist owner during bidding and contracting, but it would be proposals that Glenn would get and then be able to compile fixed numbers from those vendors. And then in April also, we would be asking the owner to release purchase orders for furniture. So you've seen a hint at what Abby has conceived here for this space, but we would need to ask Abby to get budgets for the furniture and maybe get some better pictures, unit prices. And then by April, we would need to get released to get purchase orders out. And Abby, I'm hoping that we have enough time to get these items for occupancy and installation in September, as you can see in this timeline. So that's been our approach so far. A new item that has been added is a community forum. that library staff would like to have. I believe they've already scheduled it, and I believe, Patrick, they may have spoken with you about it already. So that would happen during March, and we would get feedback from the community. And hopefully the feedback is minor tweaks in this plan. If they say, we think you need to flip the plan and reverse it, I mean, we could do that, but it sets us back if we get that kind of comment. But if they say, well, I think you need to have study carols in this adult area or in the teen area, that's easily to accommodate during the month of March. So I'm hopeful that we can get that feedback from the community forum as soon as we can before we finish our design build documents by the end of March. As far as sign-offs by this committee, I'm sure the committee doesn't want to sign off on anything unless they see some numbers. So we would need to start getting numbers in April and get those budgets confirmed. And then we would start full-scale demolition and construction in May. I know Glenn has been doing work already. He's probably been stripping some finishes and materials out of the existing McMahon library. So he's getting a head start. So that's the way I see the schedule laying out. Glenn, feel free to comment on this. As Jeff said, we have a meeting scheduled to discuss exactly what kind of documents you need in the drawings in order to be able to get proposals. For example, we know that the toilet rooms are going to be drywall partitions. We should discuss whether it should be 1 layer or 2 layers. We should discuss what kind of finishes we would have in those bathrooms, for example. And so all we need to say is drywall partition, metal studs, finishes on the floor are tile, paint on the walls, unless you want tile on the walls.
Well, I'm showing tile on the wet wall.
Yeah, but what we need to do is show, I think, the plan that simply describes the generic finishes and maybe a basis of design for a ceramic tile. And I think we would need to have a little latitude when it comes to getting proposals or costs from vendors, because they may have sources that have quicker delivery. So I would think we would have to structure the design build proposals from vendors to allow them to propose material that they could readily get. And the same thing, for instance, on the ceiling. I know we want to replace the ceiling tile, but we're talking about saving the ceiling grid, perhaps painting it, and then installing new ceiling tiles. So all we need to show on a ceiling plan is salvage existing ceiling grid, paint white, and then replace all the ceiling tiles in the pattern that we will show on the ceiling plan. Don't need a lot of information there.
Well, it's gonna be the same pattern.
Right, and the glass wall around the teen area, it could be what you described. That's one possibility. We say equivalent to, 1/2-inch glass, tempered, laminated,
But jointed.
butt jointed, and see what kind of proposals we get from vendors. So that meeting is going to be scheduled soon with Glenn, and then we can finish up the drawings during the month of March, which is here very soon. Glenn, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that.
No, I just think, the sooner the better we get these plans together. And my fear is, just the procurement process itself, and just getting several bids per each job. It really depends how we want to package these jobs together. The storefronts with the teen space and the vestibules might be one bid package, just for time's sake. I don't want to go out to bid in April, maybe finish getting all these bids back in May, and then be kind of in a state of sticker shock, and then have to replan things. I would just feel better gathering numbers as soon as possible, and I'm absolutely ready to do that.
Yeah. All right. So I think, given that, I'm going to ask the building committee to authorize us to proceed with these design build documents so that Glenn can get his pricing. That means that you need to authorize us that basically it means that the committee is satisfied with the layout as presented by Abby, so that we can get some firm numbers as soon as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why we can't do that. We're not approving the final cost or anything. We're just saying you can move forward with these designs, assuming that there could be tweaks to them and, you know, potential for some things changing based on any additional input that the library provides.
Right.
Yeah.
So moved.
Thank you, Bob. Do we have a second? Lois seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, yeah, sorry, thank you. Any discussion on this, Clark?
I don't know, I think there's a question here about, at least in my mind, what design build includes or doesn't include, or what is gonna be provided. I mean, design build sounds, I don't know, like the Wild Wild West. It's seems wide open. So is it gonna be defined enough that you'll be able to level the bids so that you can tell what everybody has? It just seems a little loosey-goosey to me. And
Yeah, so we have a limited amount of time and a limited fee, quite frankly, which I want to open up that subject as well. When we first started doing this project, we said, well, we need to have preliminary layout, we need design development, and those details would be all worked out, and then construction documents. And construction documents are fully fleshed out. We would bring in mechanical, electrical engineers, and they would do complete layouts of ductwork and so on, locations of thermostats. And we don't have that kind of fee, so we're not doing. We're not bringing in sub-consultants to do mechanical systems. We're going to rely on Trane, for example, who provides a new mechanical unit on the roof that fits the existing curb. And we're relying on Trane to do a proposal for layout of ductwork and to address the proper distribution of air in the library based upon this layout, and also to create supply and return in the teen area, and probably a separate thermostat in the teen area. So that may be a separate zone. We haven't had conversations with Trane yet. And I don't know how much Trane can do. Does it have to be Trane? No, it can be another competitor. But Glenn has already reached out to Trane. We know they have a unit that could fit the existing curb, for example. So we're very constrained here in terms of design effort and schedule.
Yeah, and also, Richard, we have a lot of existing ductwork. We have a lot of things that are already there in place that we want to take advantage of. And I think Glenn is pretty confident, and I know I am helping him to move this thing, because I think schedule is key. We gotta get some sort of approval for the layout, which is what I'm hoping for. The teen room, the storefront system, the vestibule doors, and the bathroom layout, so that I can give Glenn a drawing and then whatever else he needs and start rocking and rolling, because the building's empty. He's already got the carpet out. And I think, you know, if we can get on this, it's going to end up being a more successful project in the end.
Yeah, so I wouldn't call it a Wild West. We would need to sit down with the apparent low proposal and qualify them. So Glenn and TSKP would have to sit with whoever is proposing to do all of the glass work and say, have you got this? Have you got that? And make sure that they have a comprehensive package and a contingency that they can draw on as well if something comes up that they didn't anticipate.
Sorry, the cleaning crew's here. I just got to grab the dogs.
Is there a minimum number of bids that must be received for each trade over a certain?
Well, it really depends on what the method of procurement is and what the estimated value is. So I don't think we're in a position to talk about that at this point.
I got a question, and just constructability wise on I'm just, as a construction manager, lead times on the mechanical units, and
we've already ordered them.
You've already ordered it? Okay, because there's something to think about. If there's finishes going in before that new unit gets there, are you gonna turn the old unit on to keep the temperature controls necessary for the finishes within the space. Because relative humidity is a big thing for millwork, for any type of finishes going on in there. So it's just something
That sounds like Anthony talking. Anthony, can you lend your wisdom to Glenn so that he can be aware of these things?
I think he is.
I think Glenn-
I just wanted to just put it out there just in case. That's
Yeah,
it.
Glenn's on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
no,
the
we're trying
fortunate
to-
thing, the fortunate thing is there's not much millwork, right?
No, and that's the challenge as well. We're trying to do everything in a sensible manner. And so obviously starting from top, working your way to bottom, you know, taking into account the conditioning of the space. Obviously, Anthony, yes, that's very important. Relative humidity levels with finishes and so forth. So right now, that new 15-ton train rooftop unit is scheduled to come in mid-May. Also, the bid package has been advertised for the roofing retrofit. That actually was advertised yesterday or the day before. So in a perfect world, I could rig that RTU off, and then flash that curbing and so forth. I mean, everything's got to tie together, right? I mean, we can't be working backwards. So that's another pressing point to get these jobs bid, get prices out there, and get the wheels in motion. You know, we're very limited to what we can do right now. Everything's at a standstill, and it's got to be in motion like now. You know?
Now, I noticed, Glenn, that on the aerial photograph, there's solar panels still up there. Those could probably come off too, right?
Those are going to come off as part of the roof and retrofit.
Okay.
We're also working on solar though, with an energy broker. So that's a whole other obstacle we've got to overcome.
We should talk about that. Is it a ballast system?
Yes.
Good. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so the purpose of this meeting with Glenn is to talk through all of these issues and make sure that they're outlined for Glenn's work and for his schedule. We shouldn't be doing this in the committee meeting, but so this is the schedule as I envision it, and there's not a lot of wiggle room, guys.
Right. Okay, Clark, and then Lois.
I did see the bid advertisement for the roofing. I did notice that it has a deadline for project completion of June 14th. And I just didn't know if you're aware of that and how that's going to work out with the rooftop unit and the other work, because typically you don't open up the building. You want to make sure it's watertight before you start the interiors.
Yeah, Glenn is the one that established that date.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Knowing
we're
about
not,
the rooftop unit.
yeah, so with the roof, we're actually overlaying an EPDM membrane on the existing. We're not opening it up or going down to the structural decking on the roof. So we're not going to be exposed to the elements for the duration of this work.
Fine. The other thing, I know you want to save that grid and paint it, but my experience has been that whenever you try to do that, it gets beat up all along the way and you end up replacing parts of it, and it's usually cheaper to replace it. I know you don't have time to do anything, but you should consider that, because if you took the ceiling down now, you'd be able to tell what ductwork you had in place and what could be reused and what couldn't be reused, and it might help your planning.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point.
You could start with the pads now, Glenn. We can see it from there.
It isn't clear to me who's doing what. And I think that's a problem for the building committee. And I guess I would like to have that be clarified. Who's doing what? And when do we need to make decisions? I get that you want them made right away. But I'm not comfortable thank you, Clark, for giving us a little more perspective. And are we going to have construction documents? Who's going to do them? In the end, who's responsible for which part of the project that got done? If something isn't done right, just isn't clear to me how the whole thing is being done. And I would like to know that before we approve this.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Nancy.
The way I look at it, Lois, is that any of the exterior and actual building work, Public Works is the general contractor.
Right.
Any of with some some assistance from TSKP on some items like the design essentially of the toilet rooms. Not everything is going to go through TSKP. Glenn's done a lot of it himself. The interior and the layout and the furniture recommendations and all of that is TSKP working with the library. So, you know, bricks and mortar, Public Works.
Right.
And the programming areas, TSKP with the library's assistants. That's how I look at it.
Right.
That's how I
That's-
separate it in my mind.
That's
I
how
don't know
we've
if that's
always
helpful.
talked about it, yes, so, but, I mean, Downs, you know, had maybe some consulting involvement, but Downs won't really be managing this project because Glenn will be, for all intents and purposes, the project manager.
So
of this,
Glenn is
long-
doing the construction documents.
Yes,
No. Glenn is doing the documents, really?
No,
no,
when we need construction documents, TSKP is going to assist in developing what is needed for bidding purposes. Not everything is going to require that. It depends on what the package is. Right? Is that right, Glenn? Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Anything we need to come up with plans or specifications like the restrooms, I mean, well, we need physical plans a contractor can look at and say, hey, this is how it's got to be built. You know, more complex projects like that. Yes, Jeff, TSKP will be involved along with the storefronts, other simple projects like lighting retrofits, ceiling replacements. That's not required.
okay,
I think Lois made a good point. The way the project is gonna happen is Glenn is buying things. You're buying a roof. You've already bought a rooftop unit. And who's tabulating? Who's keeping track of this budget? When we get to the bottom, we're gonna have a problem. Nobody knows.
We did have an initial budget
had a budget.
for the construction part, and I do believe it was shared with the building committee. I want to say it was $1.5 million for construction that was set aside. And we are tracking that internally. Actually, I have it on my desk, and when we get a bid in or we issue an award or issue a purchase order, we're tracking it against that $1.5 million.
So 1.5 is available for this project.
For the, not including the FF&E and the technology is a different budget.
Right. So that includes A&E fees or architect fees anyway?
That's, we'll talk about that at another time.
Okay, I'm just
Yes,
saying. it
yes.
seems-
I should talk about that. So we know that Prosser went through a full design previously. We went through bidding for the McMahon Library. Well, but we didn't spend all the fees for McMahon because you never got to bidding. I'm sorry, you never got to construction administration. So what's left right now in the McMahon soft costs for design fees, I believe, is around $122,000. And I did have a conversation with Mark, unfortunately he's not here tonight, about either working hourly or on a lump sum basis not to exceed that 122,000. And we knew that time was limited, so we had to jump in immediately to start doing layouts that could be presented to library staff. I haven't totaled all of the hours, but we can certainly provide that at the next building committee meeting as where we are with soft costs for design effort.
After the experience of Prosser, I just am scared to death as to what this is
Right.
gonna total up. to.
Well,
And that's
well,
one of the
that's why-
reasons why Patrick brought up the issue of the window.
window,
This new wall in the teen area, that's something new as well. So
right, we just have to be mindful of what the costs are and determine whether or not we could really do it when those bids come in, because what we were faced with, as we all know, is that's why McMahon is not able to be enlarged the way we anticipated that would be. And
Just doesn't seem that there's a deadline date where we're gonna say, okay, are we over or under? Are we good?
I would tell you the original estimate for Glenn's work was about 650,000, I want to
yeah,
say.
for 17 items or something like that.
Yeah, so right now there does appear to be room, but you know, again, you don't know what the bidding environment is going to be.
Abby, we can
Okay,
stop
so can we
sharing.
go back? No, is it- Okay, can we go back to the motion? So we have a motion, it was seconded, we're having discussion. Before I request a vote on that, can we just go and I say again, what exactly you would do with this motion, Jeff, if we approve it? What are you gonna move forward with providing?
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that layout that Abby has worked out with the library
Mhm.
staff, and I've already started to find some systems, right, to gather together, hoping that nothing is going to change. I know the ADA toilet, that whole wall envelope area is not going to change. And I got a glass system for the teen room. That's the only really new item. And
Mhm.
then the storefronts. So if I can convince everybody that the building components, you know, the frame for Abby's work, the interior stuff is set, then I can work with Glenn. We can meet at the site. We can walk through everything in the drawings that I provide him, talk about what we're thinking, what potentially is there, and then he can start to take it and get all his bids. Because if we
Okay.
start having to shift and change and stuff during that thing, that's when it gets a little scary for me. So I'd just like to have that, you know, sort of an okay that the teen room as it is there with the vestibules, the ADA toilets, everything that's good. Then I can finish my drawings and get them to Glenn.
We don't really have that, Vice Chair, if there's a community meeting where people may want things to change around.
Right.
And
Like, for example, well, I mean, this may not be the best example, but I know Elizabeth talked about the study pods, you know, if they decide to change one to
But
make
that
it
was
a four-person.
FF&E.
But that's FF&E, okay. So, I mean, Elizabeth, do you have a date for that community?
Yes, it's going to be March 12th,
March 12th.
from 4:30 to 5:30 before the library board meeting at BPL Atrium.
Okay, and our next meeting is the 13th.
I thought it was the 5th. That was the day
We
that
were
was
gonna
on
have the
Abby's
5th.
schedule.
Pardon me, Nancy?
That was the day that was on the schedule Abby showed us.
You're right,
Yes,
that
that's-
was my understanding. I may have been mistaken.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess what I'm wondering, would we have enough time if that's on the 12th? I mean, you would know, Elizabeth, if there were any glaring changes, right? I mean,
Yes,
Mm.
and that was why I was kind of talking about, you know, how we're thinking through the fixed versus the mobile, you know, the full service versus the not, and you know, we were really leaning towards not having this be a full service library, but then after working with the TSKP team, we're feeling good about this. But we
right.
still want to go over and get a sense for the feel for the space, and we absolutely want to have a moment for the public to really look and give us feedback. Will that, I mean, the footprint of the building and some of these things we're talking about, I don't see that changing. And one of the things that was absolutely asked for by the community was a teen space. And really the only way to have a teen space is to have an enclosed teen space. So I don't see that changing either. As soon as they were able to make, TSKP made that happen, I think that's going to pacify a lot of people.
Okay.
But we
Okay, so
still
I guess then
absolutely
I-
do want that public input opportunity.
Right. Right, makes sense. Oh, Bob?
Jeff,
Yeah.
putting off a decision for 2 weeks is gonna put you somewhat behind the 8 ball, isn't it?
That was my.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't see
Yeah, I
anything.
don't think it's a big deal to approve the layout, right? The teen space, because we know that the envelope things and Glenn's list is not changing. So as long as that teen room is okay with the library staff, there isn't much to really redesign now. We got the frame there. Now we just got to get the input from staff and the community on those pieces, the interior pieces.
Right.
The infrastructure needs to be set.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So again, we're not approving costs or FF&E or anything like that. We're just giving approval for,
To the concept.
to the concept of it.
Concept
No,
of the
no,
layout?
No, you're given the approval to give TSKP the go-ahead to do the design build
The design
drawings
build, right?
for the
The
toilet
layout,
rooms,
yeah, for the layout that Abby presented.
The general layout,
The
Yes.
interior.
the
layout.
interior,
Right,
nothing to
interior,
do with the
correct.
furniture.
Right.
the interior layout.
Right.
Okay, so that's the motion. Any further discussion? Okay, now I'm gonna call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Yeah, I think we just have to stick to the schedule. Go ahead, Lois.
Could I ask that, I'm not sure that I ever did see the budget in detail for this project, so I would like to see that. And in that context, I would like to know who is responsible for what piece, so that we can track it along.
Yep.
Thank you, Nancy. And also the slide that Abby, or maybe it was Jeff, the slide with the schedule, can that be sent out to the LBC too?
Yeah, absolutely. Abby, if you could forward that along with your plan layout.
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so Abby, back to you. Is there anything else?
Nope, I'm all set. So I do have just one concern.
Yeah.
We've already discussed that library shelving typically takes 16 to 20 weeks lead time. So depending, I'm just going to go ahead with the plan we have now, and if we need to tweak a few things later, that's fine. But initially we had said that we would present to the committee on March 13th meeting to get the budget
Right.
of FF&E approved. If that looks like that is going to move to the following meeting, which is, and if we, depending on the community, what we hear back from the community, if things are going to change, this is all going to push us back. It's going to be a very crunch lead time, but most other products so far that I have found are not a problem. They will all, not that I have all the products already identified, but whatever I have worked on so far, other than the shelving, everything else can come on time. They're much less lead time, anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks usually. My second concern would be the circulation desk, because it's a custom desk that can take a little longer because there's some shop drawing process involved in that. So these would be my two key items that if the dates get pushed, these are some of the problems we could expect. Other than that, I have nothing else to share today.
Okay. Yeah, so the long pole there is the circulation desk and the shelving, yeah. But it sounds like the circulation desk could even take longer than the shelving.
It depends. I wouldn't say so, but I'm trying to find manufacturers that can make that desk that will not take too much time, but.
Right. And we're saying the shelving that's currently at the atrium, we wouldn't be utilizing that shelving at all?
So far, that's not been in the plan. Everything I showed you today on the layout, everything is new.
Is new.
Except the chair carts that Elizabeth was talking about, which I didn't really make it in the drawing, but
Yeah.
everything else is new.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Abby. Thank you so much for all you've done. One last question. So as far as the shared space, or for if the atrium moves into McMahon Winterberry to share that space for a time until Prosser, has there been any movement or progress there, or what's the quick update on that?
If you can clone all of us, we would have probably had an update.
Why not, Elizabeth?
I think I speak for both TSKP and the
Okay.
BPL staff.
Yeah,
It's
no,
hard enough
that's fine.
working
I
this
just
fast
wasn't
with, yeah.
Okay, no, that's fine. Okay, all right, well, thank you. So maybe by the 13th, we can get an update, on the combined space. That will be an interim space, assuming no other changes. Is that doable, or?
I think so. We would just going to add some extra workstations.
Right.
But if there
Did we lose
So-
Abby? We
I
lost
think we
Abby.
lost Abby.
Oh, did she jump off?
Well,
I
don't
think
she
maybe
did on
she, I don't think
purpose,
she jumped.
but- The roof isn't high enough, I don't
She was
know.
Maybe the cleaning people came in and
No, I mean, I think we're good there. If Abby comes back on, we can
Yeah.
get her back on.
We had a discussion about that today. I think what we were really pushing for is settling the permanent plan first.
Yes,
And then she would create a
Yeah.
revision of that, a modification of it for a temporary.
right. No, I agree. That's what we wanted to have that first anyway. Okay, why don't we move on to on the agenda, and if Abby comes back and needs more time, we'll give it to her. Sean, you're up next, Colliers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Yes, sir.
Sean Vincent with Colliers. Should be sharing my screen now. Can you see that?
Yep.
I just have a quick update. In terms of special testing, Tri-State has been on site the past 2 weeks, inspecting the rebar in the pictures that Anthony had shared earlier. Rebar inspections, concrete placement, and concrete core samples. The commissioning agent, Van Zelm, is engaged in the process. They're reviewing the submittals, which include installation as well as, installation procedures, as well as the equipment. In terms of the project overview, as the picture showed, concrete being placed for the footings and the walls are being prepared. The observations I made in the field, all the proper cold weather protection, as you saw with the footings have been covered properly. The Downs has been taking all those precautions. What you can't really see in the pictures is they're managing the groundwater very effectively and the rainwater. In terms of keeping moving through the bad weather, and Manafort has been doing an excellent job of keeping the low points so they can pump properly and everything keeps moving forward. And one thing I forgot to put on the list is obviously the safety. They've Jason out there in the field has been adamant about the safety. They're enforcing all their safety procedures as well as like Anthony was showing the
Yes.
pictures of the rebar and things of that nature. That was all I had to report on this evening. If there's any questions, I can certainly answer.
Any questions for Sean? Anybody on the screen?
No.
Any hands? No.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Appreciate that. Okay, next up is the banners provided by the Friends. So Elizabeth, I think you're up for that one.
Yes,
Thank you.
hold on, let me cue that up.
Yep, this was sent out in our package as well, and I'll let Elizabeth present it, but I love it. I think they're great.
Okay, so here is one of them. And essentially this is this is probably a bit different than the one that is in the packet because we've just been updating it.
That's the McMahon one.
And simplifying it a little bit. So, so this is the one for McMahon.
And we're adding the phone number.
Oh, yes, it's missing the phone number. And then the other one. This would be the one for the Prosser site. It would be really big on the green fencing.
So Elizabeth, would you want two of them, one on Mountain and one on Tungus, or how would that work?
I think ideally, yes.
Okay.
Elizabeth, what size are these?
They're very big.
They're gosh.
I know,
4x12 or 8x12. I gotta double check.
something like that.
feet.
Yeah, they'd be feet.
Yeah. Is it bigger than the sign that's out there now? The one with all the, blocks on it? How big is that one?
Custom scrim.
Yeah, the custom-
That's more of a square size, that one.
Okay, these are more rectangular.
Yes,
Is it 8 by 12?
it's about that.
Looking at.
It's
the
smaller
picture,
than that, though.
Like it would be.
Yeah, you don't want it
Like
bigger than.
12 by 4,
Eight-
12
I
by
think we had,
4.
Anthony, we have
12
the
by
12 by
8
4.
12 by 4. Okay,
Anthony, do we have an 8-foot fence or a 6-foot? I don't recall.
I think it's 8 foot.
it's 8 foot,
Okay.
more than 6.
Just keep in mind if it goes down to the ground,
That's what I got.
if part of it at the bottom gets cut off because of line of sight. Keep that
Yeah,
in
it's
mind.
only 4 height, 4
Okay.
feet.
Oh, okay, so it's
Okay.
long. It's just
Yeah,
long.
it-
Right.
12 feet long, 4 feet high. Yeah,
Yeah, because you want it up high, right? So, yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, up toward the top.
Yep. Okay.
And then do the signs have those little, what do you call those, like?
Grommets?
Yeah, grommets, thanks, Sean. I mean, how would we attach that to the fence?
We haven't worked. How are the other ones attached?
I mean,
I
grommets.
think
It does have
they're-
grommets.
Yeah, just
There's
put
grommets
in
and then
place.
they're like wire tied and spun and twisted and pretty much locked in place. But
Yeah, we can help you hang them. It just.
Okay.
yeah,
You can get
that's no
grommets in them in the
problem.
corner.
Oh,
Start
okay,
with
you
a
can-
spot.
you
Yeah,
can
we
do
can,
that.
okay. I'll go out there with Jason.
What are these, plastic? Tarp?
I think they're like a vinyl feel. And again, I wanted to also acknowledge that this is being funded by the Friends of the Bloomfield Public Library.
Yes.
Thank you, Friends of Bloomfield Public Library.
Yes, too bad Penny's not on. Okay, so it'll be the 2 for the Prosser side, one maybe on the Mountain Ave side and one on the Tungus side. Is that all right, Anthony?
Yeah, that should be fine.
Okay, so there's room.
We'll be able to find a spot.
You'll be able to find a spot, okay. And it doesn't impede anything you would be doing, right? I mean, putting those signs, okay. The one for McMahon, I mean, where would that one go? I don't think we have fencing around.
So
McMahon,
we
do
had originally thought to put it in the front window, but then it wouldn't really, people wouldn't be able to see it.
It's-
So we're actually working with the designer right now to see if it should actually be a sign. So she's looking into that and we're reaching back out to the Friends because that might be, it's a little different scope than what we originally talked about, but if it stays the same, it'll be in the front window of McMahon Wittenberry, but we're hoping that it's actually going to be a sign somewhere on the property, and we would just work with Glenn to figure out where that best location would be.
Yeah, I think it might be hard to read it on the from that. You know, if
Right,
it's inside and you are outside, I think that would be hard to
How
see,
far
right?
away from Bloomfield's Avenue?
Right.
right. So we were thinking that maybe having one on both sides of the building, so one in the parking lot, and one on the Blue Hill side. And it's funny because I'm sure Glenn will tell you, and I know Chris was there the other day, that if you are there, people are trying to get in the building. It's amazing. But people are still like, you're there for 5 minutes and somebody's rattling the door to try to get in. So I think these signs will go a long way in alerting the public about where to find us.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they're really good. Okay, so then for purposes of tonight, do you want us to approve both Winstonberry and McMahon?
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
Okay.
And so again, these are not totally final. We're still wordsmithing and editing a little bit and trying to make it more user friendly. But this is the concept and this is the main idea.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay, Bob's moved it. Do I have a second?
I'll second, signs of the size of 4 foot by 12 foot, or 12 foot by 4 foot.
Okay. Any discussion? So anything you would change, Elizabeth, would just be around the verbiage and that wouldn't be the size, right? So we would
Yeah.
stick with that for 4 by 4. Okay.
Chris, can I confirm that, but can I just say that we will finalize that with Scott and Anthony, the sizes? Because I'm not 110% sure that it was.
I went back to the original scope of
Okay.
project from the graphic designer and that's what it was. So
Okay, thank you.
I think we're good.
Okay. So the motion is to approve these for both McMahon and Wintonberry, size to remain as is, potential updates on the,
Size 12 by 4. Right.
12 by 4, right? Okay.
And these,
And
do they need to go through any other commission? There's some people who like to look at signs. I don't really understand why we are doing this.
well, I guess because we're placing it on the fencing
Right.
itself. which is part of the project, so. Want
Yeah,
to make
we
sure
did
we're
not do
okay.
this with the other one that we did with the artwork.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
We do need to do this.
No, we did approve that.
So Nancy, do you know if anyone else would?
I don't know. I can research it. I'll just double check.
Okay,
I'll reach
yeah,
out to like the building department because I think
Yeah,
they're the
they'll
ones
know.
that might do it. They
Yeah.
would know.
I can't imagine they'll say no, but I think
We also do have to put a sign up for the state at McMahon as well. That's a requirement.
about the grant, for the grant,
Yep.
yeah.
we'll so you get them all done at the
Speaking
same
of
time.
signs, yeah, we would just need to get a temporary permit. Cause it's temporary sign.
Okay,
I found that out
Oh.
way back when.
all right. I'll follow up with,
Yeah, that's what.
building and land
That's
use.
what they told me.
okay.
Okay. Okay, good. So with all those things, pending, we'll be asking for approval of these, assuming that we get all the rest of the items in place. So any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Elizabeth, and special thanks to the Friends of the BPL. Very, very nice. All right, our future, we're up to Nancy, I skipped over your approval of purchases and invoices.
Well, no, you didn't. You didn't get that far yet. So yes.
Oh, that's coming up now, right?
Right.
Purchases and invoice, so you're
No
on it.
purchases. I just have one invoice to invoice 10142 for GeoQuest for environmental consulting services for project monitoring through February 9th, 2024. It's $8,607.50.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, any discussion?
yeah, question.
Yes, Bob.
Nancy, do we have any idea what miscellaneous project expenses are?
Yeah, I saw that too, $120 or something like that. Some odd.
I don't know. I could speculate, but I don't know.
Right.
Mm.
Well,
And what were they doing?
Asbestos,
This is
They
again,
were doing air
The air
monitoring going on for when Riley was coming down, as well as when
Yeah.
we were taking away the concrete foundation of the existing Prosser Library that had asbestos in it.
mhm.
okay, it'd be great for me if I had a little reference to what they were doing
okay,
when we
all right.
have things like
Yeah,
this.
Nancy, if you have any questions, I mean,
Yep.
question or something.
So Sean, you don't know what that 120 is, yeah?
I do not.
Yeah, okay.
It could be something as
Yeah.
simple as some sort of, equipment, batteries for
Mm.
the monitoring equipment and,
Mm.
some PPE.
Do they
probably.
get mileage reimbursement or?
They do, but
They're like,
Across
they're right
the
across the
street.
street. You're like 5 yards away, literally.
you get walking allowance.
That's
Could,
not it.
could be copies for report, who knows?
Do you want us to hold this one, Nancy, or do you want us to go ahead and vote?
What's your pleasure?
I think we could go ahead and vote on
Yeah.
it, but assuming that you'll just find out.
Find out, let us know. what time
Okay.
it's 20
Yeah.
bucks.
Yeah, I mean, not to,
Yeah,
not
I
to
think-
speak for Bruce, but, they've done a hell of a job for us out there, anytime we need him, he's on call, he's got his staff right there.
Right.
Anything that's unforeseen, he's literally right there. So he's absolutely, he's a pleasure to work with.
His communication has been very good
100%.
as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
he was a good find.
Absolutely 100%.
good. All right, well then all those in favor of approving this invoice in the amount as stated, say aye.
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 Vice Chair votes aye. I think that would motion. Any other ones, Nancy?
That's it.
Oh, okay, good. Oh, okay, so G is the other items from the committee. That's what I thought. I jumped to there and skipped over invoice. So does anyone from the committee have any other items?
No, I want to apologize. I'm an hour behind on the ship. I got caught up, but I'm glad I tuned in. Bye-bye.
Yes, thank you, Bob. Hope you're enjoying the cruise.
Yes, I am.
Good, good. Okay.
I have
Yes, Les, go ahead.
I have a concern, if we're gonna have a very rainy spring, I hope somebody is looking downstream on that creek to make sure that none of the, barriers for the water to run away,
Mm.
so that they're clean. I don't know whose job that is.
Well, we have
Public
Manafort
Works
that
maybe.
installed the stormwater control plan, hay bale, silt fence.
I don't
all
mean
around
on the
the property.
site. I'm talking below the site.
Mm.
Because sometimes when the site has been flooded, it hasn't been the fault of the library.
Yeah.
It's been way down and everything got backed up.
Mm.
And before you have time to put in all of the storm control stuff, it would not be good to be washed away. So I don't know who's responsible for that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know. Would that be wetland?
Well, I think Public Works
Public Works?
ought to have an idea of
Do you-
what it is. If you go down.
Cause they do it for other streams, I'm sure they watch, watch other streams. 'Cause we have other areas in town where there's flooding.
Well, one
Yes,
thing I can point out, the time that Philly Park has been flooded, where the benches have been literally, ones on the island, right by the pond itself, literally been totally underwater. The water level of the stream below where Prosser is,
Mhm.
has not risen. It has stayed relatively the same. So what that means is the bears they put in at either end of the pond are holding that water in, so it goes out slowly. So it's not flooding like it used to.
So it's been fixed.
Well, the flooding we used to have seems to have been abated because of that. Because I've seen, for instance, the property next to the gas station has been totally underwater. These benches have been totally underwater, and the stream is still rolling in its banks.
Mm.
I've been watching that.
I was concerned about
Yeah.
downstream.
I was concerned about what was gonna happen too.
Okay. All right, any other items from the committee members?
I had one.
Okay, yes, go ahead. Elizabeth.
So we had a question about the wood that was removed and is currently Public Works is currently looking at that tree that came down at Prosser. And the question was about making sure that the wood is safe during this time. But also when I spoke to Dan Carter, the Public Works Director, he just let me know that the cost to move forward with that project will be more than what we might have thought. He said $15,000 to $18,000, I believe. And I just wanted to know, is that going to come from this project budget to make something from the wood that was taken down at the Prosser site?
No.
So I know the Public Art Commission is interested in that. So in terms of putting the wood somewhere to keep it safe so it cures, that they should start figuring out the costs associated to do that, because otherwise that wood is just going to sit there.
Well, didn't Public Works take the wood?
Yeah.
Yes, but all that's all it currently, it just has a tarp over it.
Oh, okay,
I'm not sure it needs more than that.
yeah.
No, as long as it's not sitting in the rain and sitting in a puddle, you're fine.
Yeah, it seems like they've covered it over with tarp.
Right.
I mean, that might be a question, I guess, to the design, if they want to do something, the design review committee, or what committee was that?
I don't even know.
Oh, the
if
art,
there's-
art committee?
Yeah, the Public Art Commission is
Public art, yeah.
interested, but the Public Art Commission, I know their budget last year was $5,000, so I'm not sure that they would have the money to do anything with that either.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to
Yeah.
put that out there.
You know, we don't.
Budget season's coming.
Elizabeth,
Yeah.
My husband has been very interested in this project, and he also knows a fair amount about curing wood. So I think what we need to do is ask some of those people who are very interested in it. And assume that if it is just sits there out of the water,
Yeah, as long as.
it will take 2 or 3 years for it before it can be ready anyway.
Oh,
That's
that
my
size-
understanding.
That size piece, oof,
Probably take longer.
yeah.
Mm.
So it's not emergent, is what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know. Other comments? Okay, future meetings, our next meeting scheduled is March the 13th and then March 27th. And now I'd like to open for public comment, Nancy, if we could just remind everybody of our rules. If anyone
Okay,
is wishing
just to let
speak.
people know, you have 3 minutes and we ask you to state your name and your address when we call on you. I see Wayne Walters. Go ahead, Wayne.
Yes, my name is Wayne Walters, and I have a concern. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My concern is, everyone seemed to be happy with Prosser to get in a new library. But McMahon, it seemed like they're just getting a makeover, and that makeover is not conducive to the community on that side of town. Why is that so?
Wayne, this is just public comment, so we
Right.
don't engage. So if you'd like to talk more about what you would like to see there or what it is.
First of all, the
Nancy, we aren't
size.
able to hear anything. Can you hear?
Can you hear Wayne?
No.
Oh,
We can hear him.
we
Okay.
can hear him in the room.
Can other
Wayne,
people
maybe if
who
you
are
could
not in
just-
the room hear him?
Yes.
Go ahead, Wayne, you can continue.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Wayne.
All right, so my concern is that the size that was agreed upon in the memorandum is much smaller. We're getting a smaller building. All right, is that correct?
The building is the same size as it always was. There will be some minor things inside the building, like the toilet rooms have to be made ADA compliant. So that will take a little change there. But basically, the building will be the same size as it currently is.
So why isn't the building getting larger? Why is it still the same size?
Because there's no money.
Right, there was no money after the bids were opened. The money that was needed for that building was insufficient. So we were not able to do the original plan that was proposed for that building. So we
So-
scaled back, so that Prosser then is moving forward.
So why didn't the town ask for more money from the state?
Well, again, I probably shouldn't be speaking about all this as public comment, but basically, we did. The town council did not approve going for another referendum. So the town council did act on this, and they determined that we would move forward with Prosser and we would do whatever possible at McMahon Wintonberry to make that building the best that it can be without changing the size of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're
Wayne.
welcome. Thank you.
Is anyone else from the public? Can raise your virtual hand. Okay, we're done.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for public comment. The next item on the agenda is adjournment.
Second.
All right, thank you, everybody. This is a really good meeting. I appreciate everybody hanging in and being patient with us as we got through all of those items. So have a good night, and we will talk to you really soon. Bye.